Oh hi, I live my life feeling like I'm always just about to cry. Welcome to another happy video. Today, I'm going to talk about a podcast that's pretty great. Tell you 2 stories about me, and then wrap up by discussing how I currently deal with social anxiety. So to begin, I need to give credit where it's due. I was inspired to make this video because of the SadBoyz. And no, I'm not talking about Swedish rappers, although I could go for a Swedish fish right about now. No, what I'm talking about is the podcast SadBoyz. It's this great show that's about feelings and other things also. It's become a bit of an obsession for me. I think it just might be the greatest podcast created last year, and I look forward to it each week. But just keep that between you and me. I want them to think I'm cool. Anyway, their last episode was about social anxiety, something I know a lot about. I know I hide it well here on YouTube. But because of a combination of acting and not very cheap Final Cut plugins, I can make it appear that I'm a confident and strong guy. What you don't see are the Sunday mornings where I can't get out of bed and I silently sob into a pillow because the world feels like it's pressing in on me as if I were the earth's precious flower that it wants to preserve. This happens in all areas of my life. If the phone rings, if I know that I need to talk to a salesperson, if I'm going to an event with lots of people, all of these situations means that I need to rehearse what I'm going to say to make sure I don't come off as a jerk. Also, I've been repeating the same phrase 73 times in my car. Anxiety affects me every day. To me, it feels like a giant is slowly squeezing my heart. I have shortness of breath, my eyes water, and my voice gets just a little bit quieter. I don't do well at parties, too much stimulus. If somebody directly asks me to do something, it's incredibly hard for me to say no. If I have to spend a lot of time with people I don't know, I go home feeling completely exhausted. So, hard pivot, let me tell you about the time I peed in a changing room. I wish I could tell you this was an adorable story where I was 5 and I had an accident, but I was a teenager, like 15. The thing about me is that during my high school years, and really up until my mid-20s, I was unbelievably shy. The anxiety I had after a conversation with anyone made me want to throw up. This happened with people I knew at school, but also cashiers, operators on the phone, and my own extended family. I was with my mom in the middle of Zellers, which I don't know if that exists anywhere outside of Canada. It actually doesn't exist in Canada anymore either. But think of it as Walmart, but with more maple flavoring. My mother and I had just come from having a snack at a close-by diner. Because I was a teenager, not only had I just eaten 5,000 calories in French fries, but I'd also drank just a ridiculous amount of iced tea. I'd recently given up drinking soda, and iced tea was now how I had decided to fill that void. Anyway, we were in the Zellers, my mom had picked out a few pants for me to try on, and that's when I realized that my bladder was near overflowing. But my mom had just asked the employee to open the change room. I couldn't possibly waste 3 minutes of their time to run to the washroom. I decide I'm going to hold it in. I don't want to inconvenience the employee. I've convinced myself that even asking to go and relieve myself would be an affront not seen since the revolution against the bourgeoisie. I put one pair on, show my mom. That's a no from her, so we put that in the no pile. My bladder is very unhappy with me. I put the second pair on, show my mom. That's a yes from her. We put that in the maybe pile. My bladder is screaming at me. It comes time for the third pair of pants. My bladder is no longer willing to compromise, and it just unleashes itself. I begin peeing in the change room. My entire bladder empties. I've turned fire engine red, complete silence outside the change room. I put on the third pair of pants. My mom says yes. We pick up the jeans. We're going to buy and fast walk to the counter. In the car, my mom is livid. It was so obvious what was happening in the change room. The employee knew it, my mom knew it, we all just collectively decided not to say anything. I feel so bad for that employee who had to clean that up, but my own anxiety wouldn't allow me to simply state something that needed to be said. It really was no big deal, but my mind had convinced me that it was. The thought of slightly inconveniencing somebody else forced me to inconvenience myself and create a worse situation. How about the time I got grifted? This happened in the first year I moved to Calgary. I didn't have a car at the time, so I needed to rely on public transit to get around anywhere. Calgary's transit is notoriously awful, still is, so I found myself often sitting for 30 to 45 minutes waiting for the next bus to come. It was during one of those times that I was approached by a man. This was before I had a smartphone or an MP3 player so that I could pretend not to hear somebody who was trying to get my attention. It's the lifesaver of the clinically anxious. I was reading a book, who even does that, but I was reading a book and this man interrupted asking if I had any money. No, I said, I only carry cards. Which was true, I wasn't lying, but then he responded, there's an ATM a block away. And then I was stuck. How could I tell him to go away? That's incredibly rude. There's a mini debate in my head about if I should help him or run away and never come back. So I slowly closed my copy of Speaker of the Dead by Orson Scott Card and walked with him to the ATM. I took out $20, and gave it to him. He asked if I would mind 20 more, and guess what? Of course I did. He promised to come to my work to pay me back, and I'm sure you know where this is going. Well, guess what? He did come. We became really good friends. His name is Mike. He married Samantha, and they just had their first child, Miles. Also, none of that is true, and the guy essentially stole $40 from me. Why I'm sharing these stories is because you need to realize that anxiety prevents you from asking for help or asserting your point of view because of this fear that you will be perceived as rude or letting someone down. Perhaps there is a psychological reasoning for that. Going to therapy will probably eventually uncover that some slight trauma has caused me to want everybody to like me, and if somebody doesn't, then the entire world will end tomorrow. Now, I've certainly gotten better at saying no to people as I've gotten older, but what hasn't gone away is the social anxiety I feel in large groups, the belief I'm being rude, and the thought spirals before any interaction. So, remember when I said this at the beginning of the video? Just keep that between you and me. I want them to think I'm cool. Sure, I use that for comedic effect, and what a comedic effect it was. But it's also something I worried about while I was writing this script. Yes, so let's pull the curtain back. This is a production. Josh is helping me film. I actually have a teleprompter telling me what to say at this very moment. So this video has a bit of artifice, but it allows me to communicate exactly what I want to in exactly the way I want to. The SadBoyz is a great show. They're doing amazing work, but there's still a part of me that's worried that they will think it's a bit much. That's also believing that they'll watch this video ever. So the circle of anxiety never finishes. What has helped me deal with this the most is to state out loud how I'm feeling, especially when among friends telling them I'm feeling anxious because of this reason. It then allows me to deal with it in the moment, and I don't have to think of it as a struggle that only I have to deal with. Now, this doesn't really work all that well if I'm surrounded by people I don't know, but I'm also getting better at being open about my feelings and junk with complete strangers. Hi, Internet. But what about you? Do you struggle with anxiety? Do you have any good tips to deal with it? What strange place have you peed in? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, big thanks to these patrons in particular who continue to make these videos possible. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Kyle. I upload videos every Monday and Thursday. If you want to help support me and make these videos even better, consider going to my Patreon page, and for as little as $1 a month, you can help me out over there. You know what I'm the most anxious about recently? Should I say eggplant or aubergine? What will people think if I use the wrong term?